Where is Rob Howard from? Where is he coming from? Poland. Alona. Correct, Rob. Located in Poland, and today he is connected from Poland. Where has he been teaching? In what countries has he been teaching? Where? Any ideas? No one wants the prize, or no one knows the answer.
I do. I'll give you a hint. I teach online, so I'm everywhere.
Looks like everywhere. Yes, okay. Currently teaching online, has been teaching in Brazil, as far as I know.
Yep.
In Poland, and he's a conference speaker, so he traveled all over the world. Next question, why is 2016 an important year in his teaching career? Any ideas? No answers? He was in Moldova in 2016. No,
I
Moldova.
wish.
Yeah, he's on his wish list, but that's a good guess. He was nominated for the 2016 British Council ELT Awards for Innovation in Teacher Resources. So we have a star today. And the last question, what is he fond of? Wild guess. Music, English, fond of teaching.
Teaching English.
Teaching English. Any other hobbies? Nature, teaching teachers, traveling. Cooking. Yes, I know he has a cooking book published.
Cooking
Nature
and eating.
and eating. Yes. So that's our speaker today. The floor is yours, Rob, and we are ready to learn from you.
Well, what do they win?
What do they win? They win a session with the star speaker.
Oh, that's it? Okay, good. So I better be good then, huh? Right. All right. Let me get my presentation going here. So thanks everybody for being here today. I'm going to bring up the chat room and the other one. So if you have any questions, I'll be able to watch and see. Okay. So today, thank you so much, Irina and Larissa, for having me once again. This is turning into my second home, Moldova, and happy to be here again today. And just to give you a little bit more about myself, because you failed miserably at the quiz, but I'm the owner of Business Language Training Institute and Online Language Center. This is where I do my teaching for students and for teacher training. As Irina mentioned, EFL Talks is Teachers Teaching Teachers. We've in our 5th year now. We've got over 600 videos for teacher development, all 10 minutes at a time. And I'm the joint coordinator for the IATEFL BSIG, which is Business English, which is my background is business. I'm also with the Visual Arts Circle. I've started the Independent Authors and Publishers Group and studied with the Efficient Language Coaching. So I'm everywhere. And I must apologize. I'm not with COVID. I'm losing my voice. And unfortunately, I have 3 more hours to go after this. So hopefully my voice will hold up. But I guarantee that today's session is 100% virus free. Okay. So the first thing, before we even get started, and before I start any kind of class, the first thing I want everybody to do is breathe. Breathe, okay? I want everybody, take a deep breath. Hold it. Feel it. Nature is around. Breathe deeply, because I want you to relax. I want you to be in a good state of mind. And this is how I want my students to be too. So I always start off with some deep breathing and get everybody in the right mood to speak. And what's important, we know as teachers, is we need to build a safe zone. And I like to build a safe zone in all my classes. And my students know me well, whether it be face-to-face, one-to-one, online, in groups, whatever, teaching teachers. This is a safe, comfortable zone. There's no wrong answers. There's nothing you can do that, is going to embarrass yourself. I want you to feel comfortable to share of yourself. And by doing that, I'm going to share a lot of myself. And by doing that, I'm modeling and showing you what I expect from you. I love building community. Community in the classroom is wonderful. It's one of the most powerful things that you can have. If you've seen any of my other talks, what I try to do all the time with groups is to get them closer. The closer they are together, the better they will speak and interact with each other. So community is very important. Give clear directions. Now, I know you're all teachers, so I'm going to have to say this again, because you're the worst at following instructions. Give clear directions. Make sure that the student understands exactly what it is we want them to do. And if necessary, use modeling and give them an example of exactly what it is that you're looking for. And model to show your expectations, as I just said. Now, so here's 5 ideas for speaking activities that you can use. Some of these, if you've seen me, I've been talking so many times in Moldova, I don't even know what I've talked about in the past. So you may have seen a couple of these before, but if you haven't used them, I hope you will after today. Now, number 1, I know I've done this one for Moldova, was story building. And we did a whole session on this where I use image clusters to get students to produce and to speak. Now, the idea of this, if you didn't see it before, is I put together groups of strange pictures. And what they are supposed to do is within a group, they're going to build a story. And usually what I do with each one of these is I give them a particular target grammar aspect to use. It could be the passive voice. It could be the perfect tenses. It could be conditionals. But what they need to do as a group is to build an actual story using each one of these pictures within the story. Now, what it does, it gets them talking to each other. It gets them critically thinking to analyze what the pictures are. Some of them, you notice, are a little strange, but they can use their imagination. And by doing this, they put together a cohesive story by negotiating and working together. And I have a whole series of these that I use, but you don't need to use my pictures. I do these because they're pre-made up, but you can use anything. And for example, These are some card sets that are available here from friends of mine. I'm not advertising for them, but here in Poland, there's a few friends of mine. Regipio has a set of cards, business photo cards here. I use these with my business students, and even Telk. If you go to any conferences, you can usually get these Telk cards, which have little pictures on them. Use any kind of picture to trigger their imagination to put together a full story that they're going to present at the end of the class. Other things you can do with images, because images are so powerful, have them bring their own pictures, you bring pictures, find pictures on Google, and have them build a story which they're going to work together and then present to the class. This definitely gets them speaking because they're working with a definitive project that they have to finish. And this works great online also. So it's something you can do, and very easy, and takes very little teacher time, and it gets the students involved in talking. Number 2, I love to argue. Those of you who know me, I argue with everybody. You can ask my ex-wives. They'll tell you. I enjoy arguing because the nice thing about arguing is it tends to put you into a little bit of a state of stress. Now, I don't want to stress them too much, but what I'm trying to do is get them off of their comfort zone. And what happens is, if I were, assuming, let me see. I'm looking at the audience here. There's mostly women. If I were to make a negative statement about, women teachers can't teach, what's the first thing you do? There goes the back. Wait a minute. And you start arguing, and you start thinking about answering back and arguing with me. But the funny thing is that you stop thinking. Now, think about it, all you women that are here. If you have husbands, boyfriends, any kind of partner, you know men stop thinking very quickly when they argue, and they just blurt out whatever comes first to their mind. And this is the thing that I like about arguing, because they stop thinking about the language and they start talking. So by doing this, they change the entire thought process. Now, if I were to ask, let me see, I'm looking at Oksana here. I happen to see Oksana's picture. Hi, Oksana. Smile. Now,
Hello.
hi. Now, if I said something, Oksana, that's a horrible background you have there. How can you think of putting that up? Immediately she'll get a little bit defensive. And she's going to start answering me back and justifying. And the funny thing is, she's going to stop thinking about how she forms a sentence. And she's just going to start thinking about how she's going to win the argument. It really works well. Be careful what you argue about. In Brazil, this was very easy, because all you have to say in Brazil is pick the opposing soccer team, and you've got an argument for a month. But, take something safe that you can talk about. Excuse me. For instance, people who like to argue with me, don't say that Americans are horrible, because I agree with them. So, think of something that's just going to push their buttons just enough to get them to stop thinking. You'll find it's really effective. And your students will know that you're doing this for the sake of the conversation. But think about it. Most of the talking they're going to have to do in the future, they're going to have arguments. They're going to have discussions. They're going to disagree. And how much of that do we see in the course books? Not a lot. Everything we see in the course book, positive. Everything is agreement. Yes, I agree. You don't get any of these pushback phrases that they need to learn. So it is really a skill that they need to develop. So think about it. And if you disagree with me, we can meet and we'll argue later. Okay, number 3. This is a thing that I came up with my business students, and I find this is very effective. It's a 3-way conversation. Now, what I have them do is think of something. Let's say I want to take a 1-year sabbatical so I can travel to Japan and learn how the Japanese learn English. I've got to put together a presentation and explain to my boss why I need a year off. So I formulate this conversation and then have this conversation. I can do this speaking. I can also use this as a writing activity. Now, as soon as I finish that, now I have to tell my mother. I've got to explain to my mother why a year in Japan is going to be good for me and the family and everything else. And then after that, I'm going to talk to my best friend. Now think about it. What I'm doing is I'm using 3 different distinct registers, 3 distinct voices, and the grammar, the vocabulary, everything has got to change between the 3 of these. And this is great practice. For instance, I'm talking to my boss. Yes, sir, I feel that it's very important that finding new methodologies overseas will improve my student, blah, 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 blah. When I'm talking to my mother, yes, Mom, I'll wear warm clothes. I won't get married while I'm away. I know you don't like Japanese food. I won't eat sushi. It's got bugs. And when you're talking to your friends, dude, I can't wait to get some of that sake over there. So it's really a creative way for them to think about the different genres that they're going to be using and make them do this. Like I say, writing, speaking, it's the same. And it's really a good tool. And they find it surprising how difficult it is to change between the genres. So try that one out. Number 4, laugh. Have fun. I think we don't have enough fun in class anymore. And by doing this, I mean, catch them off guard. Come up with things that they just don't expect. Because every class, if we follow a book, if you follow a syllabus, every class is the same. Why do you want to give them the same thing? Catch them off guard, give them something to laugh about, work with humor, work with something that will really get them out of their comfort zone. Because you know what? Excuse me, sorry about the voice. The biggest argument and complaint that I find from students is they don't understand comedy. They don't understand joking. They don't understand plays on words. And having fun, getting them to laugh, and playing around with comedy is going to help them a lot. What I do is I have a lot of my students watch stand-up comedians. One thing that's nice about it is they'll see how people use their voice to actually present. So get them to laugh more. Number 5, draw a line on the board. whether it be a whiteboard or anything, a piece of paper. If you have a chalkboard, do they still exist? Hopefully we're back in the classroom soon, so we'll at least have an interactive whiteboard. And what I call this is minus, equals, and plus. And what I do is I make 3 columns. I have a minus, an equals, and a plus sign. Now in the minus, I use a weak word, and I'll explain that in a minute. In the plus, I use a strong word. And in the equal, I use something neutral. Now, this is something that came out of my idea of Threeway. And because I work with adults, most of my students are people that are coming back and studying English for the second time. They studied as kids, maybe they studied at university, but now the reality is they're working in a workplace and they need workplace English. So I don't want to call it business English because everybody gets scared and runs away. So we'll call it workplace English, because this is what most students are learning English for these days, especially returning adults. What they need to do is understand the nuance between words. So, for example, I'm working right now with a company in Belarus, and I'm not their English teacher. Because my background is in sales, marketing, customer service, I'm actually teaching them how to sell. I'm teaching them how to work with a customer. They already have C2 English. So here's what we're doing. I have them put down a list of words. Here's a weak word for me, if. If you hire me, maybe I can do a good job. It just sounds so weak. What's a stronger word instead of if? When. So when I get this job, I will blah, blah, blah. And then I have them think and come up with some neutral phrases, like in the event. Now, here's how I work with this particular one. Excuse me. A customer service rep gets a phone call from a disgruntled customer, and the customer says, well, I can't get this to work. Now, think about it. If the customer service rep said, well, if I can figure out what your problem is, I'll help you. Does that sound very positive? No. So they fall back on the word if, though, because this is the easy word that they've learned. I want them to rethink. So instead, they're going to say, well, when we figure out the problem, we will move forward and get everything working okay. Does that sound good? So what we're doing is taking weaker words like can, and we're going to make that will. Most likely is neutral. Think, I think I can help you. Not very positive. I know I can help you. I'm certain of. And we go through this. In fact, I still have to type them up. I have tons of these, my list that my students are making. And what we're doing, we're building a whole database of weak to strong words. Now, what does this do for them? When they start thinking about this and building these different columns, now, when it comes time to say, think, automatically they have the word no here. Before, they were just looking to fill the space and they say, well, I think I can help. No. Now they have at the tip of their tongue, I'm certain of the fact that I can help you. This is forcing them to find words that they can use to communicate with, and it helps them to increase vocabulary. But most of all, by practicing these, it forces them and helps them to recall quickly better phrases that they need for their jobs. Think about it. I'm looking at Larissa Marza. I hope I said it right. Hi, Larissa. Say hello.
Hi, Rob.
What do you think so far? Is this helpful?
Yeah, sure it is.
Sure it is. Now I want something really strong.
Really strong.
Yeah.
I know that this will really help me.
Even stronger.
I'm certain of that.
There you go. It will definitely help. But you see, it takes a minute. We tend to step back and we take the easiest word that we know. And I noticed this because what I do is I also do for companies, I do their text that they use on websites and pamphlets and all their materials. And you know what they always put? We can do this, we can do that, we can do this. And I'm constantly replacing can with will, because they're trying to sell a customer. But it doesn't come out naturally for them because they automatically fall back on the easy word. Sound good?
Yeah, it does.
Do you think that will help you in the future with your students?
Yes, because when we use will instead of can, we kind of give them a promise, yeah, that we will do that.
Exactly. And good, you brought up a perfect point, because sometimes I don't want to make a promise because now I'm liable. So instead of using the word will, I'll use the word can. So this gives them ability to jump back and forth quickly. And I was really surprised when I started thinking about this, that everybody tends to go for the weak, easy word, because the strong word isn't natural. It is for me. I've been teaching people how to interview for years. And being American, of course, I'm extremely arrogant. So when I'm interviewing for a job, it's like, I know when you help me, I will increase your sales by 50%. So that sounds a lot better. I think that I can help you if you give me this job. Which person are you going to hire as a salesperson? The strong one. So great. Thank you, Larissa. You were great.
Yeah,
So,
but that implies also responsibility.
yes, exactly. So, yeah, I talked really fast. So also, using new vocabulary, we should always be using new vocabulary. I'm a huge fan of the thesaurus, not the dinosaurus. I'm not that old. The thesaurus. I constantly get my students to use a thesaurus to come up with new words and new vocabulary. Vocabulary, they tend to be lazy. They go back to the easy fallback words. I tell people, when you get a new word, when you get a word that you use often, I want 5 alternatives for it. And doing these things, it helps to build confidence and it gets engagement going. So before my voice dies, excuse me a second. Thank you. So I'm building, in my students, I'm trying to make autonomous learners. And what I'm doing is I'm teaching them the tricks that they need to continue learning for the rest of their life. Because you know what? I've been studying English for almost 100 years now, and I learn new words every day. The language changes. We know that. Imagine in the workplace how much it changes. It doesn't change that much for teachers, but it changes for workers. Think about the IT sphere. Words today that didn't even exist 6 months ago. And I'm trying to teach them how to learn, where to learn, and make them keep learning, because I'm building users of English, not learners of English. And I keep them happy. So every picture tells a story, and every student has a story to tell. And I'm going to show you. Here's one of my students in Belarus, and she's a little bit shy. And working with her, she decided while we were studying, she wanted to learn drums, and she wanted to learn something new. So getting to know my student and talking about things, I happen to be a musician. So we started talking about things she loved, which was music. And she sent me this just a couple weeks ago. She did her first recording of her playing. And what I'm adding in is my other students that I'm working with. Can you hear me okay? Because some people said that sometimes the music's too loud. Let me turn it down. What I would like to do is I find out the passion of my students and we talk about their passions. I have dancers, my friend here with the train. My friend's passion here is her son used to be photography. I have one in Russia. She's a professional chef. She teaches how to cook online. I have one here who's a professional gamer. Another student who's in the United States right now playing volleyball on full scholarship. So learn your students' passions, take advantage of the passions that they have, and use that as the basis of your discussion. And if you do this and keep them happy, work with their passions, you're going to get students that produce and keep speaking. So with that, I'm going to stop speaking for a minute and open it up for all of you. So tell me, questions, comments. Okay, let me take up stand-up comedians. Any recommendations? Actually, here, let me give you one. You can find this on YouTube. They also have their own website. It's Try Comedy Bar. This thing, Dry Comedy Bar. If you search for this, it's comedians that do stand-up routines in excuse me, in a dry, it's a dry bar, no alcohol. So they're not going to be swearing. They're not going to be saying inappropriate things. So it's something that's safe you can use for comedy for your students. So you don't have to start explaining swears. But it's Dry Comedy Bar. I watch it in the morning so I can start every day with a laugh. It's a great way to get started. Sorry, the voice is terrible today. Any questions? Feel free, turn on your cameras. Let me see your smiling faces. And feel free, raise a hand. You can turn on your mic. ask your question. I figured I'd talk fast today so you could ask more questions. And that figures nobody's going to ask. Come on, Marina. I know you're dying to ask me a question. Yes, you.
Wanted to ask, when you introduce some jokes or laugh to your students, is it a big group of students?
It can be. It can be a large group. It can be a small group.
Don't they make a mess?
No.
Can you control them after that?
Oh, sure. You know, I carry a cattle prod and I, give them an electric shock afterwards. No, I don't have a problem with them having fun. For me, I've learned a lot of languages over the years. I've had a lot of really bad language teachers. And the worst things that I remember is sitting in class miserable. And I didn't learn a thing. And I remember where I learned the most is where I felt comfortable, where I wasn't afraid of laughing. And students find the balance. If they're laughing, if they're having fun, as soon as you're back, they'll come back again.
I see, thank you. For teenagers, it is a bit difficult. Should I step aside from the plan? A small joke, some smile, and I lost them. No working mood, no wish to work, to eat, to write, nothing.
Have them write their own jokes. This is a tough one. Comedy is the hardest, remember, because if I were to, let's say I did speak Moldovan, which I don't even speak Polish yet, but let's say I understood the language and you put on a comedy show, probably I wouldn't understand half of it because comedy is the hardest because it's historical in some places. I have to know the history of the culture. I have to understand the culture. I have to know historical people. And there's just so much to comedy. It could be a play on words I don't understand. A great example, excuse me, I have a son in the United States and he's American. He grew up, born and raised there. And we were watching 2.5 Men one day. And they made a joke about Buster Brown shoes. Now, my son's in his mid-30s, just 2 years younger than me. Oh, and he had no idea what they were talking about. It was an American comedy, and they made a joke based on American history because Buster Brown was a character that sold shoes when I was a little kid. So my American son didn't understand the American joke. How would I expect a foreigner to understand that joke? And I try to explain this to my students all the time. Don't beat yourself up because you don't understand comedy. Native speakers don't always understand the comedy. So, this is something that you can work with, though, a lot. Sometimes you have to do some explaining, but they're going to have to understand a lot. When I first moved to Brazil, many of my students were actors, and I'd go to the theater to see them act. And one in particular, my friend Carlos, every time he told a joke, he'd look out at me to see if I was laughing. And he goes, I knew you wouldn't know that one. And because he knew I didn't understand the cultural history of Brazil for the joke to be funny, but everybody else is laughing. So comedy is hard to work with. but it's also fun. And I think if you do dry comedy bar, they'll understand most of these jokes here.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Great, thank you. Who else? More questions, comments? Laugh at me. Give me a quiz. Nothing? Larissa, this is your quietest group ever.
Oh, yes. You noticed it, right?
What did you do to them?
I think this is not my fault. I think this is the end of the school year.
Could be.
Yes, probably this is the reason. This is a little crazy.
Well, let me ask you people then. What are your best surefire ways of getting your students to speak? Do you have a quick activity you can share with us? What gets them talking? Guaranteed.
That's a very, very good question, actually, because you know that we had these parallel sessions with students
Mhm.
during this event.
Yep.
And Alina, who is moderating that group and who is taking care of that, said that, wow, we've got so great students who can actually speak.
Mhm.
But they have this barrier. I don't know. Maybe this is age, or maybe this is something like, I don't know, connected to the methodology of teaching,
Mhm.
because they are afraid. And this time they came, they spoke, even if they written down their speeches beforehand and just came here with this like TED talk kind of speech.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was difficult for them to like come, but when they did, they really started liking it, and they would probably come and do that more. But like overall, we have quite of a problem with making students speak. I'm not sure if I'm right or I speak for everybody, but why I observed, I don't know, maybe somebody would just contradict me and say that it's not true. The students love speaking and do speak whenever they have the chance. Please tell me this this is your case, because in my case it's a headache to just make. What I do usually is have a set of quick questions, like about 5 questions. Usually all the questions around the word why.
Mhm.
Okay, you went to the store. Why did you go there? To do that. Why? To why? So this way somehow make. I know that I sometimes sound like a bad, I don't know, detective or something, but this is something that works
No, it's
if you make and connect the speech to their real life, to
Yeah.
what they actually did.
Well, this is the thing that, what I miss the most, especially with COVID and moving around, is teaching teenagers. And people always say that teenagers are the hardest. I think they're the easiest because, as I've said in some of the talks before, if you saw the videos, the making student films that I've done, this gets them talking. One thing I'm a firm believer of is, listening to kids and giving them the chance to talk about their opinion. Now, as adults, we know how dumb we were as kids and that they really have no idea what they're talking about, even though they're opinionated. But we got to let them try to use their voice. And, what I noticed with the Brazilian teens is nobody ever asked them their opinion. In Brazilian schools, teachers never said, "What do you think?" And I remember the first time I asked students, "What do you want to do?" They looked at me like I was crazy. Why are you asking me what I want? And, this is the thing. Once you get them to feel comfortable to be part of the community and to speak up, they'll talk. Now, they may have garbage to say because they're teenagers, but we need to let them practice because eventually, hopefully, they'll become smarter adults like we are and have something good to say, but they'll have the confidence to say it. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. We have here in the chat box the activity find someone who. Yeah, that's well an idea of somehow
Yep.
making students talk.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that I use with my students show and tell. It works both online and in class.
Yeah.
They choose one thing to show and tell why did they choose that thing.
Yes.
And also I ask my students to share their experiences. I mean, one good thing that happened to them the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Share something good, interesting. And of course, all of them are eager to share their experiences and opinions.
Yep.
And it's a good start.
Great ideas, Larissa. This is one thing that I often say is I noticed this in Brazil, especially that, sorry, they are not used to public speaking. They don't have opportunities in Brazilian schools to do that. Growing up as an American, we started off as little kids with show and tell. You know, here's my favorite animal and blah, blah, blah. And it gives us a little more confidence to speak. So I think, you know, doing presentations of any kind is great. I was amazed that in Brazil, and even I'm noticing this with Russians and Belarusians that I work a lot with, they've never done a presentation in their life. And I'm like, how can you not have done a presentation? So, you know, these are skills I have to teach them now. They should have grown up with it. So great job, Larissa. That's keep them doing that because this will give them confidence. Debates. Good luck. I hope it works, Natalia. I love debates. As I said, I like to argue, and I do all the time, some will say. But, you know, I grew up debating. I was actually on the debating team in high school. And I thought, what a great thing to do, debates, when I was teaching with my Brazilian teenagers. They don't understand the concept. I said, all right, all the boys, you're girls, all the girls, you're boys. Now have a debate on why girls and boys are better. And they said, but teacher, I'm a girl, I'm not a boy. How can I argue? I'm like, pretend you're a boy. But teacher, I'm not. You know, the concept, I wasted so much time trying to do debates with them. But I think it's a brilliant idea if you can get them to debate. I couldn't do it. I finally gave up. My favorite words at today's lesson. That's good. What was your favorite word today? Finished? No, I'm sorry. The end? Agree or disagree with some disputable statements. Yeah. Yeah, come on. We all argue. We all disagree. That's conversation. And sometimes, you know, people are like, oh, you know, don't disagree, don't do this, don't do that. But that's reality. You know, what I love the most, I don't have them here. You know, the first thing they taught me when I became a teacher is they say, okay, parsnips. Do you all know parsnips? Don't talk about the parsnips. You know, politics, alcohol, religion, the rest of them. They tell you never to do it. You know what the first subjects I did were? Parsnips. And you know what worked the best? Parsnips. Because in reality, they need to talk about this. Come on, not talking about politics? How many people talk about politics as adults? We need to teach them what they need. Any more comments? Feel free. Please save my voice.
SOS. Okay, so I think that if anyone has any questions, this is the time to do it now. This is the time to ask questions and say something. Or, I don't know, just let's make a short teacher's appreciation end of the week already and come up with some good thoughts for the teachers, for the fellow teachers who are here in this group. Please unmute yourselves and feel free to say something, to wish something, I don't know, to
Turn on
show.
your cameras.
Yes, and
Face.
cameras, that's right.
Show your faces. I want to see all the smiling people.
Marisa, do you know what I did with my students? I asked them to write a thank you letter to their favorite teacher.
Great.
And they actually did. And I made a Google slide presentation and I included the letter there, the photo of the teacher and who that letter is from. So yeah, it was a good teacher appreciation week.
That's a very
nice.
good idea. Yes.
I did
like
that. I haven't gotten any letters.
Send
we will
Rob a
write
letter.
one right
Yes.
away.
Okay. Please,
So now
everyone.
task number one, let's have a slide together and write some appreciation words.
Yeah,
This
thank
is
you for your commitment and for sharing your ideas.
I thank you for you all coming and listening to me. You know, how many times have I been in Moldova now?
That's, I don't, yes.
A lot.
As far as I remember.
Rob, thank you so much for your tips. They're always useful for our classroom.
Thank you.
You soon recovering without sore throat.
Yeah, I hope so too. Lots of people are happy to hear that I can't talk anymore.
Oh, come on. I don't think so. I think your students are suffering. So please, please, please feel better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Anything else, ladies, before we just, I don't know.
Well, I appreciate all of you. So I'm going to applaud all of you teachers because you're all great. I know it.
And Debbie, as usually, I usually say that people who decided to dedicate their life to teaching, and especially in public schools, especially in Moldova, I don't know, deserve a statue or I don't know what, like some like a huge prize.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that nobody will ever give it to them, but anyways, we know how to appreciate our work and let's be more
well,
software maybe. I don't know what to say.
If we appreciate each other, that's a good start. And our students, I'm sure, appreciate us, even though they don't realize it.
Yeah, but this is also a good way to teach our students and to teach the future generation how to appreciate everything around, like good things, and really somehow distinguish good and bad things and have a feeling of what is good and what is bad. So if we do appreciate ourselves, then we will have students who will appreciate more.
I still talk to my 5th grade teacher. She was my inspiration to become a teacher. And she follows me on Facebook and she sees my talks and she's like, oh, I can't believe how far you've come. And it was because of her, because she inspired me, just because she had so much love for it. And I tell her all the time, I hope I can be half as good as what she was. So, you know, hopefully our students will feel the same way about us.
Oh, yes, that's a very good example, actually, because this is really something, wow, to have a teacher who inspired you. I do actually think that most of us here have a teacher who inspired us. Am I right, girls? Ladies and gentlemen, am I right about this? Okay. If
Okay.
there are no more questions, nothing else to add. Anything else that you'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen? Also, I forget that we have some other
Okay.
gentlemen here, surprisingly.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no questions, thank you very, very much, Rob.
Great. Thank you.
As
Always
usual,
a pleasure.
pleasure to have you among us, and hope that this like very long already nightmare will soon end and we'll have the possibility to meet face to face.
Yes, I'm all packed and ready to come over. So let me
So
know.
let's, yes, keep our fingers crossed.
Good.
Thank you very much for that.